Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So after the body cam video of the police-involved shooting in which Dexter Reed was killed was released, the Cook County State's Attorney, Kim Foxx, had this to say.
If the evidence proves beyond a reasonable doubt that the force used was illegal, our office will file criminal charges.
I just found that to be an odd thing to say because, of course, that's the case. If the evidence proves that somebody broke the law, then we're duty-bound to prosecute them, which is not exactly always the position that Kim Foxx takes. But she made a point to say that about the police officers involved in the Dexter Reed matter, despite the fact that we saw from the body cam videos, plural, multiple body cams, that he is the one who opened fire on officers.
From watching that, like her tone and her attitude, it's as if she's already convicted them in her mind. The police officers.
Well, there's something else too, because there's something else too about this, because all of this discussion about the pretextual stop. Why are you stopping for making a stop over not wearing a seatbelt? Not to mention tinted windows and so forth. Let's say it was a bad stop. Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx. Let's say it was a bad stop. Let's say they profiled him. There's no evidence of that, but let's say it. You want to ask those questions? You want to investigate? Go ahead. So let's say you find out it's a bad stop. It's pretty clear, in fact, it's black letter law, that a bad stop wouldn't justify opening fire on police officers. So even in that case, the response by Mr. Reed was unjustified, and the response of police officers to protect themselves was justified because, you see, if it's a bad stop, Kim Foxx, you would think the Cook County State's Attorney would know this. This is why we have courts of law. The police treated me unfairly. The police stopped me because they were racial profiling me. That's not an argument that gets adjudicated on the street. That's an argument that gets adjudicated in a court of law. Isn't that right, Cook County State's Attorney Foxx? Oh, nobody in the Chicago Press Corps bothered to ask. What a surprise. For more on this and other law and order matters, we're pleased to be joined again by Bob Milan. He's a former First Assistant State's Attorney for Cook County. He's also a former Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois. Bob, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Happy to join this morning.
So, what was your reaction to what Kim Foxx specifically said? Am I being too hard on State's Attorney Foxx?
Yeah, I actually think you are. I heard her entire statement. The little clip you played really didn't represent what she said. I thought her statements were spot on. I'm going to call it the way she sees it. And I thought her statements were balanced and very well done, actually. The problem I had with the public statements was the letter that the head of COPA sent to Superintendent Snelling that went public. That's where, to me, the big issue was. I mean, look, COPA's job is to conduct an independent and thorough investigation with a sense of urgency. You're supposed to provide a fact-based and a transparent report of what happened and then make a determination on whether excessive force was used or not, or any type of wrongdoing. And by presenting the videos and opinions after 19 days was in my opinion, a big mistake, and some regrettable comments, especially, and I'm talking about the letter that went public.
About stripping them of police powers?
Yeah, I mean, for instance, she writes in the letter, there were serious questions about the proportionality of the officer's use of deadly force. In my opinion, that's a premature and naive statement to make. I mean, what were the officers supposed to do? Are they supposed, after the offender fires repeatedly and wounds one of their colleagues, are they supposed to say, Joe to my left fired 4 times, I fired 6. Dexter Reed has fired 10, so we can fire another one. But it doesn't work that way, and anybody that watches the video knows that that's kind of a ridiculous statement.
Yeah,
You
but
are
also
fighting for your life.
Well,
You're
wait a
fighting
second.
For your life at that moment, and for them to talk about the proportionality of the response, I found naive and regrettable.
Kim. Well, first of all, the clip I played from Kim Fox was ABC7, so you have to take that up with Chuck Gowdy. But I did listen to her whole statement as well, and the problem I have is emphasis and then also what's left out. So she stood there with the representative of COPA and the mayor. I didn't hear her say anything along the lines of what you just said about COPA. I didn't hear the mayor say anything about that either. I also didn't hear her say anything if she's going to, offer this balance in terms of how the public is supposed to process these things. I didn't hear her say anything about what I said either, that this idea, as we heard in the press conference with the family and the plaintiff's attorneys, that he was afraid. And so we're supposed to somehow insinuate that was, and they were yelling at him and they had guns drawn when he didn't comply with their commands, that somehow it justifies what he did, or somehow the officers were in the wrong. And there was no additional context that she provided to that.
No, yeah, and look, I want to go back to what I said originally. This issuing the videos and making these statements 19 days was a mistake on everybody's part. They should have waited, right? At this stage of the investigation, they don't know what they don't know. Mm-hmm. And so for all of them to get up there, it was too early, right? It's just too early, and there's too many unanswered questions. I mean, and again, I had no problem with Kim's statement. I thought she was considering the situation. I thought she was pretty much spot on. It was the letter from the head of COPA to Snelling that was the problem. I mean, she went on to say something else. She said, 4 officers fired after Reed exited his vehicle unarmed. I mean, you have to wonder if they watched the video. I mean, if you watch the video, after this guy fires multiple times, he either intentionally or unintentionally drives into a squad in a parked car, and he gets out the driver's side, and the view of him is blocked. You can't see him because he's between the police officer's car and his own car. When he walks out, they have no way of knowing whether he still has the gun or not.
Right.
So there's no reason to say that 19 days in. I just don't get it. And then it goes on to say one officer fired 3 shots after Reed was already on the ground. But if you watch it, it's like a matter of 4 seconds, right? So you have this crazy shootout where people's lives are on the line. Actually, a life was lost, and you have to throw that in without saying, by the way, when he was firing those shots, he had to reload, and so he's looking down at his gun, reloading, and then he kept firing. And it's a matter of 3 or 4 seconds from the time Mr. Reed goes down to the last shots are fired. So it's just not necessary, especially 19 days out, and it doesn't help, right? You would think that day was designed to quell the public, but they caused more questions than answers. And, the one thing that's shocking to me is just this disparity between what people think about the police. I mean, I watch that and I see brave, brave, brave men and women. I mean, really, it's an honorable job. It is an admirable job, but it's unbelievably dangerous. But that's what I see. And then there's a whole bunch of the public that sees something else, and the sad commentary about Chicago.
Well, specifically in this letter from COPA to Snelling, they said it's uncertain how the officers could have seen this seatbelt violation given their location relative to Reed's vehicle and the dark tints on his windows. So it's like they're again, what you're maintaining is that they're prosecuting the police officers before doing a full investigation.
Exactly. They're prejudging this. How do they know that? Did they interview all of them yet? I don't know if they did or not, right? What was the source of that? What was that attributed? Who was that attributed to? Was it attributed to the officers that pulled them over? Yeah, we did it for a seatbelt, or was it attributed to something else? We don't. The public doesn't know. So why go there, right? Why go there? I mean, tactical units generally don't pull people over for seatbelts, right? They're out there. What do? They're out there looking for guns, right? Every year, how many times have you heard a police superintendent in the past 15 years or a mayor say, we got 10,000 guns off the street, right? How do they get them off the street? That's how they get them off the street, right? Maybe they have information about that vehicle. Maybe it was the tinted windows. I don't know. None of us know, right? And they make traffic stops, and maybe they find guys who have pending cases, right, like an unlawful use of weapon and things like that. They make traffic stops and they find the guns, and that's how they recover them. But to be issuing these kind of statements 19 days out, completely unnecessary.
Yeah, like guys who have unlawful use of a weapon cases against them, like Dexter Reed did. To your point, the other thing though too is what the politicians and the media does is they foment conversations that drive us in a completely different direction. So, for example, in this case, the conversation that's dominant, absent pushback, which is happening, but I mean, it's still the dominant conversation being pushed by the stakeholders I mentioned, is let's talk about traffic stops. Let's talk about whether tactical units should even exist. We have Sheila Betty from Northwestern Law referring to tactical units as out on the hunt and calling Dexter Reed, in this case, their prey. And that's what, this is, talk about how so many Chicagoans see something completely different than what you see, because they're being directed by quote unquote experts, by officers of the court like Miss Betty and politicians to say, well, exactly. They were just looking for the random person to pull over, and they frightened him, and he should be frightened because the police are out to get him because he's their prey.
Right. And, it's those types of people that are making comments like that and stirring things up and making the city more dangerous when you're saying things like that. They're the first ones to call 911 when they need them. That's what's laughable about all these comments. These cops are out and they're preying on people and they're terrible people and they're doing all this. But the first time they're in trouble, they're the first ones to dial 911.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a joke. And here's the other thing that bothers me: the mayor's comments. Although they were measured in some way, he brings race into it, right? Mm-hmm. As another black man that was shot and killed, and I'm raising young black men, and the shooting had nothing to do with race. I mean, zero. So why go there? The shooting happened because a young man drew a weapon and fired at the police and got shot back. That's what happened. The videos say that. Everybody knows that, right? And the fact of the matter is the wounded police officer is black. So why are we talking about that, right? And it doesn't help the city. Like everybody, we have this theme over the years, we're one Chicago, we're one Chicago. Really? Well, then let's be one Chicago. A young man was killed, right? A police officer was shot. That's what happened. But there's no reason and it happened because there was a gun in a vehicle and the guy used it, right? But it had nothing to do with the race of Dexter Reed.
If you were the incoming Cook County State's Attorney, coming in next year after the November election, what sort of challenge? I mean, the challenges are many, but in terms of like as an outsider who was an insider, how would you conceive of prioritizing the challenges that you have? What are some first steps that a Cook County State's Attorney and needs to do in that office to work better with police, work better with the fifth floor, work better with Tim Evans and the courts?
Yeah, the first step is you have to surround yourself with the best talent possible. So, I'm assuming it's going to be Eileen O'Neill Burke. It's pretty much done, and what she should be doing right now is talking to people and getting the best and the brightest to surround her, because you can't do it alone. You need to lean on people, you need advice, and you need really, really good people. So that's number one. Number two, she should be analyzing what are the biggest issues in the office right now. One of them is post-convictions. You really have to hire a lot of people to handle that unit in all those cases. There are all these old cases that are coming back, and they just there's not enough people in that unit now, and they need to probably triple it to do it the right way. And then going back to what you just discussed. Meet often with the superintendent of police, meet with the chief judge, let them know what your expectations are, what their expectations are, and keep an open door. But listen, and that's what you should be doing right now.
What impact do you think? I mean, maybe it's too early. I'm not sure. Impact the Safety Act has had on the job of maintaining law and order in Chicago and Cook County?
It's had a big impact. And I've talked about this before. The original version was ridiculous, right? I mean, it was ridiculous what it would have done to the streets of Chicago. And I saw it on TV while they're all shaking hands, the governor and all these state reps and state senators that were going to get it, that got it passed, and they're all high-fiving each other, knowing that people are going to get, innocent people are going to get killed in Chicago. So when there was an uproar, they changed it, and it's way better than it was, the original version. But still, you go on CWB blog or you read about anything, and you got 17-time convicted felon comes into court again, and because it's only a PSMV, possession of a stolen motor vehicle, he's released on the street again. Or it's a felony retail theft and he's released on the street again. It's in their mind not a violent offense. Or an individual who has already been convicted of armed robbery twice picks up a stolen car case or something like that, and because the case he's charged with that day isn't a violent crime, he's released on the street again. When common sense tells you that all he is an armed robber in a hot car, right? He's still the armed robber. Mm-hmm. And so that's what's going on out there. And so they just keep sending them back out there and putting them on the street. And what do we see? We see people doing 5, 6, 7, 8 carjackings, right? And repeated robberies and driving their vehicles into fashion windows and driving their vehicles into businesses and looting them. And it's ridiculous. And so until some people start stepping up and saying, look, this has to change. What are we going to do about the repeat offenders that you're calling nonviolent, that really aren't nonviolent, right? What are we going to do about it? So there's a lot of work to be done.
Bob Milan, former First Assistant State's Attorney for Cook County and former Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois as well. Bob, thank you as always for your insights. Appreciate it.
Good talking to you. Take care.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper. Hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
At Signature Bank, going the distance for business banking customers is what we do every day. We understand that business